Hola chicos, this is the first podcast, lesson 1 on the alphabet, el alfabeto. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, my level of Spanish is really high, or it's a lot higher than just the alphabet, so I think I might just skip this one. One of the biggest issues that foreign people, especially English people, have when speaking Spanish is the pronunciation. You could have grammatically correct Spanish and still not be understood if your pronunciation isn't what it should be or isn't what it needs to be, which is what this podcast is going to help you with. We're going to go through the alphabet letter by letter and just talk about the sound of each letter when read in a full word in Spanish. So first of all, we're going to look at the vowel sounds. We've got the 5 vowels, which are A, E, I, O, U. In Spanish, it's A, E, I, O, and U. Now, all of these sounds are very short. They don't drag out like English vowels, and the sounds don't change either within the word. In English, we have about 14 different ways to pronounce the vowels, whereas in Spanish, A, E, I, O, U is it. That's it, the full shebang. Regardless of the letters that surround them, they'll always be pronounced like that. So that's pretty much it with the vowels. They're very simple, very easy to grasp. Now, we're going to look at the consonants. We're going to go through the consonants. We'll start with the letter B. We're also going to incorporate the letter V into this because B and V are identical in sound. They both make the B sound, the B sound. For example, the words vino, which means wine, and the word vaca, which means cow. Both of those words are spelt with a V, with the letter V. Vino, which is V-I-N-O, and vaca, which is V-A-C-A. Now, if we were to read both of those words in English, it would be vino and vaca, whereas in Spanish it's vino and vaca. It's also quite typical for Spanish people, especially Spanish students, to mix these letters up, to mix the B and the V up when they're spelling, because understandably they have exactly the same sound, so it's quite difficult to distinguish when you're in school and you're learning. Now, the letter C has 3 different sounds. So when it's followed by the letter H, CH makes a ch sound, exactly the same in English. For example, we have the word chorizo, which is the Spanish sausage, quite common in England as well. Chorizo, that's a CH. We also have the word charco, which means puddle. CHA, charco. Now the second sound, when the C is followed by an A, O, or U, A, O, U, it makes a K sound. So for example, the word carro, which means trolley, or the word correr, which is the verb to run. Carro, correr, C-A-C-O, it's a K sound. Sound 3, when a C is followed by an E or an I, it makes a th sound, which is quite similar to English. If a C in English is followed by an E or an I, it makes a S sound. For example, the word century, the word certain or circle, it all makes a S sound. So in Spanish, it's a th. For example, the word cerveza, cerveza beer, C-E, cerveza. Or the word cintura, which means waist, cintura, C-I. In Latin America, the th sound with a C is actually an S, hence why sometimes you would hear people say cerveza or cintura. It's a very Latin American pronunciation, but since we're learning peninsular Spanish, it's a th, cerveza, cintura. So if you were to look at a word and think to yourself, well, in English that would be pronounced with a S sound, chances are it'll be a th sound in Spanish. Now the D is very softly pronounced in Spanish, especially at the end of a word. It's usually pronounced as a th or it's just completely disregarded and they don't say it at all. For example, the word Madrid. In Spanish they would say Madrid or Madrid. They wouldn't tend to say the D very strongly at the end, purely because it's easier. That's not to say that you can't say Madrid. You absolutely can. They're not going to look at you weirdly or anything like that. It's just more commonly pronounced Madrid. Now, a D at the start of a word is pronounced as a D, but it's quite soft. For example, the word dolor, which means pain. Dolor. It's quite a soft letter. Moving on to the letter F. There's nothing really in particular about the letter F that we need to go through. It's pretty much exactly the same as in England. And the letter G, just like the letter C, the letter G changes sound according to the letters that come after it. For example, when the letter G is followed by A, O, or U, A, O, U, it makes the same sound as the letter G in English, the G sound. For example, the word garra, which means claw, or the word gorro, which means hat. Ga, go, it's a G sound. The second sound for a G is when it's followed by an E or an I. In this scenario, the G would make that dreaded sound that a lot of English people tend to avoid when learning Spanish, which is the very throaty H sound, the H sound. For example, the word gente, which means people, gente, or the word jirafa, giraffe, G-E-G-I, gente, jirafa. Now, a lot of English people don't tend to throw themselves into the pronunciation of words in Spanish, especially with that sound in particular, purely because it's a very foreign sound to us. There are no words in the English language with that sound, so we don't tend to throw ourselves into it, which is a mistake. What you should do is, when you're by yourself and you know nobody's listening, just practice that sound. Really go for it, because if you don't go for it, if you don't put all of your effort into that sound, it's not going to sound very good. It's not going to come out the way that it's supposed to. And one way that I was taught how to sort of remember that sound is to think about the Scottish word for lake, which is loch. Now, if you can say that sound, the ch at the end of loch, then you can say the ch for gente or jirafa. It's the same thing. And that's pretty much it for the letter G as well. So just practice and practice. Coming from an English person that has learned Spanish, it can take a bit of time, but you will get there in the end. And once you've got it, you won't even think twice about saying it. It'll just come as like a second nature to you. So what we're going to do, instead of going through any more of the alphabet, is we're going to have a little bit of a recap, and we're going to just go through each letter again very briefly. So we've got the letter A, which is A, the letter B and the letter V, which are both pronounced B, the letter C, which has three sounds, the ch, the k and the th sound. We have the letter D, which is very soft, the letter E, which is E, the letter F, F doesn't really change, the letter G, which is ch or g. And that's it for this podcast, guys. I will be making a help sheet with a little bit more information on each letter and some tips and tricks, and there'll also be a grid with all of the letters as phonetically as possible in English written down for you to practice. And we'll leave it at that. And just remember, learn at your own pace. If you don't get it straight away, it's fine. You will one day. And that's all that matters. As long as you're trying and putting the effort in, that's all that matters. So I will leave it at that, and I'll see you in the next podcast.
No hay nada más que eso, estamos perdidos.